One means insulating, the loss, or wrapping hot before Shabbos. The top, hot one, insulating. So now we're talking about, first we're going to talk about wrapping hot food, then we're going to talk about wrapping cold food. Now we're talking about hot food. Hot food. We have here Erev Shabbos, and then we have wrapping from Shabbos. We have here Moisef Hevel. What could we read this? Moisef Hevel, that adds heat. Moisef Hevel means it adds heat. You're wrapping the materials that add heat. Then you have Einai Moisef Hevel. You're wrapping it in materials that do not add heat, like towels. Towels don't add heat. What adds heat? For example, salt. Or wrapping it in a towel, and then you putting a towel on top of the fire, meaning on top of a blech, on top of a heating element. That's Moisef Hevel. That's a practical example. So we have Erev Shabbos.
Salt adds heat.
Yes.
You say if you like put the whole thing in salt.
Right.
Yeah.
You take the pot, you put it into salt.
I have no.
You have to like heat this all up to make it hot.
No. Salt, it gives heat. It gives heat. There's certain things that I'm familiar with. And say, anyways, this is connected here. This is Aser. Aser. So when we have it, to insulate food, a pot of hot food and materials that add heat, even before Shabbos, it's Aser. And if it does not have heat, then before Shabbos, it's mutter. On Shabbos, it is prohibited to take a pot and wrap it in a towel. Now we're going to talk about wrapping cold food. Cold food. Cold food. And it's also going to apply to food that was transferred. Cold food. Doesn't mean necessarily cold, it means it's not Yatiledis. Room temperature is also considered cold. Also, this would include if the food was transferred. Food is not in its original vessel. So, hot food that was transferred, original vessel, cold food, or right here, hot food that's transferred. Hot food. So we're going to explain everything. Hot food transferred. It's 2 hours or 1 hour? Transferred. 1 hour?
Yeah, both are fine.
Yeah.
It works. Right.
Probably only one.
We get the point.
Place of Hevel. What's today? A special day today that no one is here?
Everyone's sick.
Oh, yes, even going.
I had it last week.
Some food going really
You
good.
gave it to everyone.
It was taken to them.
Oh, sir. Oh, sir. Prohibited. Oh, sir. Prohibited. What time?
Wait, what does Musaf have on me?
Moisef adds,
Oh, adds.
like they suffer adding.
Okay.
Like
Adds.
you don't, there's Musaf and Shabbos without Musaf. What does Musaf mean? Adding. Because there's added, there's additional sacrifices in Shabbos and Yom Tov, it's called Musaf. So Musaf comes from Moisef adding. Mutter. Now we're going to explain what's going on. Ready for this? This is a complete chart. Okay. Ready?
1 second.
Now let's examples. What's Moisef Hevel? We already said so. Okay. Another example of Einu Meisav Hevel. Is volume ready? We give an example of Einu Meisav Hevel, which is a very simple example. You take a pot and wrap it up with a towel. It doesn't add heat, doesn't give heat. There's another example, and that is if you put it into hot water. So it's very interesting. Hot water, a pot of hot water is not in the category of Meisav Hevel, because even though hot water gives out heat, but hot water does not have its own heat. Because it doesn't have its own heat, if it's not on the fire, it's not in the category of Meisav Hevel, of adding heat. If it's on the fire, it's in the category of Meisav Hevel. But a pot of hot water off the fire, even though it's actually giving heat, it's actually in the category of Einu Meisav Hevel, does not add heat. Which means that on Shabbos, you want to take a baby bottle, cold liquid, and put it inside a pot of hot water. So because it's cold liquid, you're actually allowed to put it into this hot water. However, it's not permitted in a keli rishon, in the original keli, because if you leave it too long, it could cook. Right? If you leave it too long inside, it has the ability to cook.
Here would be the thing about the baby.
Yes. Okay. So you have like this. A pot of hot water, in what category is it? Einu Meisav Hevel. It does not give the heat.
Okay.
Even though it gives heat, but it doesn't have its own heat. So therefore, if it's not on the fire, it's in the status of Einu Meisav Hevel. It's like putting it into a towel. It means if I take a pot of food, let's say, hypothetically speaking, you take a jar of food and you put it inside a pot of hot water. It's not on the fire.
Yeah,
That's
I've seen that
considered
before.
insulating in Einu Meisav Hevel. And when are you allowed to put hot food? Are you allowed to put hot food into something that's not Meisav Hevel on Shabbos? No, you're not allowed. But if the food was transferred to another vessel, or if the food is cold, then you're allowed to insulate it in something that's not Meisav Hevel.
Right, I've done that before, like I put like a cold bottle, like to warm up the milk into a cup of hot water.
Right.
Right.
So that's allowed because cold food, you're allowed to insulate in something that does not add heat. It does not intensify heat.
But it does,
It does, it's true,
yeah,
it does, but it's still in
but
that,
it's in that category, yeah.
because the category has to do with it has its own heat. That's what it's dependent on. If it has its, when they decreed on Meisav Hevel something that adds heat, they were talking about the item that has its own heat, not heat from something else. So originally, Meisav Hevel comes from coals, hot burning coals that have its own heat. So therefore, it's only similar to that, it's only it has its own heat. Because hot water does not have its own heat, it's not in that category. So it's not what, so we're not going according to the literal translation, we're according to the way it was established. Now, if you keep it, if your intention, why are you putting the baby bottle in the hot water, then you want it to create warmth into it, then there are opinions that say it's prohibited. So we're distinguishing, again, if you take a baby bottle of cold liquid and you want to put it into a pot of hot water, not on the fire. So if the intention, so if it's
What
just,
else would they do?
no. Like sometimes you want to remove the chill, you don't want it to be too cold. It's too cold. Too cold for the baby, so you want to take away the chill.
Okay.
And then there is creating warmth, it's a difference.
Yeah,
If it's to create warmth, our opinion is saying you're not allowed to do it. If it's just, and it shouldn't be ice cold, it should be like room temperature. Okay, if the intention is that it should actually get warm, there should be warmth into it, then it becomes an issue. Okay, so let's go over everything that we did. We are really clear over here. Again, so we have here, you want to take hot food, and you want to insulate it in something that intensifies heat. You're putting it into something that intensifies the heat. Practically, that's a pot that's set over the fire. And you want to take that pot and you want to wrap it up in something and put it on top of the fire, top of the glare, top of the fire, meaning top of the glare, on top of the heating element. And even if you do it before Shabbos, you're not allowed to do it. And then it wouldn't matter if the food was transferred. Before Shabbos, on Shabbos, you're not allowed to do it. And even, let's jump over here. Cold food transferred, if it actually intensifies the heat, it's not allowed. That means you can't on Shabbos take cold food, wrap it up, and put it on top of a pot. Now, you're allowed to take food out of the refrigerator, cold potato cover, and put it on top of a pot. They said you how to do that. But if you wrap it up, if you wrap it, and then you put it on top of the pot, so you are insulating, because once it's on top of the heating element, it goes to the category of nice pebble. Because if the heat, now you could split hairs or then say perhaps the heat isn't rising so high. It could be, but assuming the heat is coming up, so because you wrap it in a material, now the material itself does not intensify heat. Because that's what we said, towel is going. But if it's on top of a heating element and the heat is going into the towel or whatever, then that becomes an element, a material that intensifies the heat. And now, what you have done was you insulated cold food in a material that intensifies heat. And are you allowed to insulate cold food in a material that intensifies heat? No. If it's a material that intensifies heat, we don't care if it's cold, if it's hot, there's no difference.
Oh, wait, okay, I think I'm.
You got it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would it be around?
Now, there is an issue that if you make kishke, so if you prepare the kishke in silver, you wrap it up and you freeze it, then you put it into the chunk. So if it's not cooked yet, now the question is maybe this is considered insulating. If it's not cooked, there's no problem. If it's raw kishke, then you prepare it to the freezer or whatever, and then you just put it in a pot of chunk to cook before Shabbos. Because it wasn't cooked yet, it's for sure not a problem. If it was cooked already, there are different opinions. I have to look it up again. I think there's a lot of opinions on lenient, but then it could be somewhat of an issue. Now, so you want to take a pot before Shabbos, you want to wrap it up, and it's something that does not add heat. Towel, take the soup off the wech, you keep it hot, and before Shabbos, you want to edit Shabbos mutter. On Shabbos, it is to do it. And let's jump over here in the mishevel. Again, now if the food was transferred to another vessel, another keli, and it doesn't matter if you transfer it back. As long as the food was transferred, even if you transfer it back, now it's okay to insulate it on Shabbos. As long as you're not insulating, it's only going to intensifies the heat. So you want to take the pot off the fire. Let's say the fire went out. No fire now. It's going to get cold. You want to insulate it. So you could do, you can't insulate on Shabbos. What you could do is you could transfer it to another vessel and then insulate it. By the way, a very interesting thing, if the fire goes out, we spoke about taking the pot off the fire, putting it back, and get the tension to put it back. If the fire goes out and now you want to put the shamans on someone else's fire because it's Friday night and you notice there's no fire anymore. and the child is still very hot. But tomorrow the child will be cold. The question is, could you take this pot and put it on a different blech? Now, when you take something off the blech, you have intention to put it back. The question over here is, if it's on the blech and there's no fire, if we view it as something that's off the blech, how can we take this pot and put it on another fire? Another blech? The question is, how is it viewed? If it's viewed that it's off and it's not on the fire, then how are you allowed to do it? I'm just trying to give a little more depth to understand what's happening. Just play it off, I want to understand. Again, it's what's happening over here. If we view it in a very simple way, there's no fire. Am I allowed to take something that's not on a bucket from a bucket Shabbos? No. Is this child on the blood? Technically, it's not. There's no fire. But the English nation says being that if it's very hot and you put it on the blood, he says you could you could take this pot and put it on a different fire. Interesting. So there's no fire, but because there was a fire, and we're talking about if the pot was on the black and you cook Friday night, and now there's no fire. Fire went out. Right? There's no fire. So now the English mission says you can take this pot and put it on a different fire, on a different black. It's considered like it's still on a blend. Am I allowed to take let's look in general. Oh, let's look in general. Let's look at a regular case to make sure everyone understands that.
Where's the cross?
What's that? Let me just give it. I have a pot on top of a black, directly on the fire. And then what can I say? You know what? Very small fire, the neighbor has a bigger fire, or you just decide, you want to put the child by your neighbor. Your neighbor has an extra fire. Let me take it from there and put it there. Is there any problem with Shabbos? Is there a problem making a pot from one fire, blech on fire, and put it to another blech on the fire? Is there any problem with that?
Just for fun?
Yeah?
Yeah, because your intention there is.
Is everyone following what I'm saying? I'm asking a general question. Is this an issue? Is there any problem taking a pot from one blech to another blech? From one, no problem.
No,
If I take it off and I have my intention, I have my hands, I can put it back. So I'm putting it to, it's the same thing. This fire, that fire, right?
Oh,
You
but
get-
the other instance that went out, but.
Does that, I'm talking in general, so you understand what I'm going to say, right? I could take a pot off, have my intention for that. So can I take it from here and put it in the other? Why not? You see? Now the fire, there's no fire in it. The fire is out. Now the fire is out. The question is, can I take the pot off the blech? There's no fire now, and put it on another blech that has a fire. So this should raise an issue to us. In other words, if according to what we learned so far, if we're going to analyze in a very simple way, you should come up. If I would just ask you, if you have to guess what the answer is, if I would have to guess, if I wouldn't learn what the information says, I would say no, you're not allowed. Why? Can I take food that's not on the blech and put it on the blech of Shabbos? No, right? So now, is this food on the blech? Not really. There's no fire. That's not called a blech if there's no fire. So technically, it's not on a blech, right? So the English information says that being you put it on the blech and there was a fire and the food is still hot, you could consider it's still, you give it the status of a blech, and you're allowed, while it's still hot, to take it and put on another fire. So there's no fire, put another fire. But you take this pot and wrap it, now you can't, because that's money. Unless, as we said, you transfer it to another pot, put it to another caving, and then you could wrap it. Yeah.
Is there like a time frame between the transferring? Like in that example, like the moving, take on one block and then moving to another block.
Yeah.
Like, let's say
Pick
take
it
on
up.
my block, let's say I'm eating somebody else's apartment
yeah.
in my building.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go to their apartment now. I
Right.
want to take from my block to top.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's stove,
Okay. Yeah.
allowed to put on a stove.
Yeah.
Cool,
Why not?
right?
Like, you only understand that what's the march, just like I gotta take off and put back.
Yeah,
Well, I have the intention of my hand on it.
yeah,
Same idea.
yeah.
I'm putting it. I think it's a difference, it's a difference, which way I put it, the one, here, there,
Yeah,
and all the conditions.
right,
Whatever conditions you need to return a pot,
right.
you have that condition. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so. So more details in regards to insulating, so. Let's say you wrap a pot before Shabbos. And you're allowed to take a pot off the fire and wrap it before Shabbos, and then you want to take out soup. If you take off the wrapping, take out soup. And then wrap it up again. We discussed this. Are you allowed to?
If you're undoing the insulation and then you're.
You
putting it back.
take off the insulation if you want to have soup. And then after you finish soup, say, oh no, I want to wrap it again. You didn't have any intention. Now you want to wrap it again. It was wrapped before Shabbos. You unwrapped it because you want to take the soup.
And it's hot
Then
food,
it's, now you're allowed to wrap it again.
hot food doesn't add heat on Shabbos pasta. Is it in that
We
category?
discussed it a little bit that last time, maybe not all the
I
details.
wasn't here on Friday.
The answer is that it's different than when it comes to the blech. When it comes to insulating, once it was insulated before Shabbos in a permitted way, you're allowed to insulate again. It doesn't matter what your intention was. You took off the insulation to give soup and you had no intention to cover it again. Doesn't matter. Now you decide you want to cover it again. If it was covered before Shabbos, you're allowed to cover it again. No problem. Else? Now. Insulating. After the sun sets, so now. The wind then Shabbos, and then. Shabbos comes in when the sun sets. And from then. Being that they did not officially accept Shabbos, when the sun sets, it's Shabbos for them, no questions, no. There's no leeway in terms of prohibitions. But for the men, there's a leniency that they can do Hatzmana after the sun sets. Reason is because usually after the sun sets, at that time the pot is still very hot. The whole concern that we said before that can happen with insulation doesn't apply here. So once the sun, so if it's between sunset until dark, if there's men around and you realize, oh, he wanted to take the pot off the fire insulated, the men are allowed. The women are not, because they already accepted Shabbos. But the men who did not accept Shabbos yet, in some communities, men do accept Shabbos earlier, there's sometimes they can take Shabbos earlier, but if they didn't, even though when it comes to sunset, they have to be strict in everything, but this Chacham clearly said that between the sun sets until dark, it's about, let's say, 25 minutes, men are allowed to take the pot, they're insulated, the same way we could do it before Shabbos. This is considered before Shabbos, and they're allowed to insulate it. It's clear? Any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is like this one, we're trying to focus that out, there's a lot. You have your crock pot, right, and it has the lid. You're not allowed to take the lid on and off when it's on, in the thing. When you take it off. Then you can be putting the lid on, right, and then putting it back on, and then returning it to fire.
You're
Right.
saying you should have the whole conflict before it's good. About it.
Before you open up the lid. Like you shouldn't be taking the lid on and off when it's still on the fire.
Why would we get the old one?
I don't know, you just forget.
Well, we need a purpose of putting the old.
Or like, or, oh, no, this is what really happens a lot. Is you return it, right? You take it off, you take the lid off, your hand is still on, right, and you're keeping your thing.
You want to scoop out, John, while it's
Figure-
inside the crock pot?
No, not while it's inside, like the food thing, but it's outside. Then you're done with the scooping. Your hand is, you probably your big eye.
So you took out the whole thing?
Yes. Then you put the whole thing back, but you forgot to put the lid on it. Are you allowed to put the lid back on it while it's inside the heating vessel? I don't know,
Okay, so the question is,
feeling.
okay, well, the question being asked is, I understand correctly, could you cover a pot while it's on the fire?
Yeah.
Right?
And take,
Could you
Uncover
cover a
the pot,
pot while it's on the fire?
yes,
If the food is cooked, you're allowed to cover it. There is a stringency, but according to halacha, if the food is completely cooked, there's no problem covering the pot while it's on the fire. You don't scoop out while it's on the fire, but to cover it while it's on the fire, that's not an issue. Okay, so attribution here. So we can start. Is there any questions about insulating? Pretty much covered whatever. Here,
sunset, okay. Between sunset and dark, men are allowed to take the pot off the fire and wrap it in a towel.
yes, yes. Till dark. But make sure not. But make sure that we keep it in the right amount of time, because
Right.
from sunset till dark, there's different
Like for
timelines.
stars,
There's different times, like the small stars, the medium stars, so they have to be careful. I would say like no more than 25 minutes to be safe. 25 minutes after the sun sets already, 2022 could be considered night. So that's a time they can do it. Okay, so that is a view sheet here. We can start from the beginning. This is from the beginning of. This goes from the beginning of halachas of cooking. So. Help you with this. Circular. Let's do it. You know, if you can class, I might as well just do it together. Make more sense. So the first question. Question 1, is it permitted to put salt or spices in a kli rishon if it's yatsi levis? Kli rishon, you know what a kli rishon is? Yatsi levis,
that's
Vessel.
yeah, kli rishon, the original, the pot itself, yeah, yatsi levis. There's yatsi levis, and there's a higher temperature, yad nichus, you can burn yourself. Yatsi levis means it's hot. That's, you draw back your hand. Actually, the exact definition of yatzlis is that it could burn the belly of a 1-day-old baby. That's the exact definition, but obviously we don't know. We're not going to test it. So but that's the exact definition of what yatzlis is. There's different opinions between 108 to 160. So, anyone has an answer? You're allowed to put salt or spices in a kli rishon yatzilus? Anyone?
Kli rishon yatzilus.
Does a kli rishon have the ability to cook?
Yeah.
It has the ability to cook. So, are you allowed to put it into kli rishon?
So,
Are you?
No.
No. No. What if it's not yatzilus?
No.
So the Alter Rebbe says it is good to be careful and not to put anything into kli rishon, anything that didn't cook yet. In other words, you're not transgressing because it can't cook. It's not. So that's when it's a kli rishon. You want to be strict. Two is if a minute to put salt in a kli rishon if it's yatzilus. Salt.
it's permitted,
Yeah.
but also probably not the best.
Okay, so you're actually close to it. There is a machlekes about salt. That according to halacha, it's technically you could say it's permitted, technically, but the Alter Rebbe says that whoever strict will be blessed. In other words, you should be strict and not to put. And in other words, the right thing is we don't put salt in a kli because it's possible that the salt will cook in a kli. we should be strict. Molly? B, is it permitted? Is it permitted to put challah in a klisheni if it's yatziledis? Now, this question has two things coming together. Klisheni, challah, right? Challah. Let's start with challah. Challah
Right,
is
challah. I
no?
remember this. 'Cause
Yeah.
My soup. But it's okay, cause the soup is the cliche. Right? So, challah in a cliche.
We're not talking about a bowl they use on a ladle. We're talking about a
Right.
real cliche now.
Yes, so I'm gonna
Right?
say
A
no.
real, they
it's
took the
not
soup and
permitted.
you poured it into the cliche, huh?
Right, so then no.
No.
It's prohibited, or there's a machlekes, there's a,
Machlokas.
what's the machlekes about?
Oh, right, the intention, are you like, when you take the soup?
No, there's a,
No,
there's
I'm
a-
thinking about
what's,
absorbing and like.
what's the
you're like
machlekes
sucking-
about challah? There's a general machlekes
Right.
about challah.
Oh, right, boiling.
Challah
It's
was baked
baked.
already, it's baked already.
Right, so then
So-
but then it's boiling it.
So you're not really
boiling
cooking it because it's baked already, but you're boiling it and it was never baked
Right.
before. So Al Tzedek says you should be strict.
Right.
And even in a cliche, because it could be that it will cook in a cliche.
So it's.
So it's machlekes, we should be strict. They want to put spices, liquid, instant coffee. Now, we're not going to do instant coffee and sugar, but we're not going to deal with that because after I made the stencil, I realized there's different opinions about it between the Rabban and how we look at instant coffee and sugar. So I don't want to go into that now. So we're going to talk about just spices and liquid, and you could put in parentheses instant coffee and sugar, spice liquid, something that's, because I'm discussing here things that are permitted. Spices and liquid. Could you put in the cliche if it's yatziledis?
Yes,
Yes. So these are things that you could clearly put in a cliche if it's yatziledis. Now, if I say if it's yatziledis, I mean yatziledis, but not higher than yatziledis. You remember I showed you on the board that sometimes when we point something out, yatziledis, sometimes we mean yatziledis and even higher. Like for example, look at question 1. Is it permitted to put salt, spice, and cliche if it's yatziledis? No. What if it's hotter than yatziledis? Of course not. Now I mean specifically if it's yatziledis, but not hotter than yatziledis. Not if there's the hotter temperature of yad nichris, we can actually burn yourself. So here I'm discussing yatziledis,
Right.
but not higher. So is it permitted? So I'm saying, may one put spices liquid in a cliche if it's yatziledis? I mean yatziledis, but not higher. So you should write yatziledis.
so that's number 3A.
I'm discussing now 2C.
Right, the cliche, it says cliche and then yad nech.
One second. Now I'm discussing 2C.
Right.
So in
that's
2C, when I'm saying yatziledis, I mean yatziledis, but not higher than yatziledis. Not
Yeah.
hotter. Because the answer over here is yes, I'm allowed. Why you're allowed? Because it's a cliche lenient, but yatziledis, but not if it's yad nichmis. The next question, yad nichmis, make it actually burn yourself. That's not allowed. 3. Now we have 3. Is it permitted to put spices, liquid, instant coffee, sugar, and a cliche if it's yad nichmis? And the answer is no. You're not allowed. Because it's yad nichmis, you could burn yourself, and therefore you should not put it in. Answer is no. 3B, is it permitted to put salt or challah in a cliche if it's yad nichmis? The answer is no, because it's yad nichmis. Now, again, it's no, but it's still a machlokes. In other words, there are opinions that say that salt and challah is not a problem because salt will only cook when it's directly over the fire. And some people say challah, there's no problem cooking because it's already baked. But we are strict. So even though you're writing no, meaning you have to be stricter than 2b, we over there was strict, so you have to be more reason to be strict. Yeah, you get what I'm saying? But technically, there is a lenient opinion. Now, just practical, what is relevant, what could be relevant, other than the fact that we have to know the halacha, strict, lenient, this. It makes a difference in halacha if you do it. Because if there's a lenient opinion, and you already did it, you can eat the food. But if you do something that you're not allowed, then you can't have it. So, for example, if you take hot water that was already cooled off, that was cooked and cooled off, and you heat that water on Shabbos, over there, the Alter Rebbe is actually strict. Now, even though actually there is a lenient opinion, but the Alter Rebbe sides with the opinion that says that it's considered cooking, and the Alter Rebbe says you actually, if a Jew does it, if a Jew takes water that was completely cooked, and then it became cold, and then, let's say, you recook it. And how do you recook it? Let's say you take this water, and you pour it into hot water. And now it became recooked. Or you put it in a hot place. You put it in a place where it has the ability to cook. Let's say right next to the blech where it's very hot. Then you're actually not allowed to drink the water. Okay, so to summarize what I'm saying is like this, to make it simple. If someone did put chal and salt into, let's say, even a kli rishon, yeah, let's make it very clear. You take salt, you take challah, you take challah or salt. Let's talk about challah. Salt might be a little more complicated. I have to check about salt, but challah, let's say. You take challah and you put it into the pot of soup. You're not allowed, but you didn't. You didn't realize in the hot pot of soup, let's say it's not on the fire, to make it simple, and you throw challah inside. Are you allowed to eat the challah now that you put inside, or the matzah, or the croutons? Are you allowed to have it on Shabbos?
In the Rishon? No. You're benefiting from
So the
halal.
answer is yes.
Oh.
You're not allowed to do it, but you're allowed to have it. How come you're allowed to have it? Again, we don't put any leniency here. You're not allowed to do it. But if you did it, are you allowed to have it? Yes. Why? What's the reason? Anyone? What's the reason?
Because it's already cooked.
Right, because there is an opinion that says that you're allowed to do it. So if you already did it, we are lenient. But if someone recooks cold liquid, let's say, over there you're not allowed to have it on Shabbos. And over there, actually, even this opinion says you're allowed, but the Alter Rebbe takes that opinion in a much stronger way. The Alter Rebbe says if you recook liquid on Shabbos, liquid that is already cooked and became cold, and you recook it, you will not be allowed to have it. Now, let me just clarify about salt, because I said something about salt.
Right, what's the
Salt is like this. Salt, if you put salt in a kli rishon, not on the fire is a little more complicated. You take the pot of soup off the fire and you put salt inside. If someone did such a thing, you're not allowed. Make it clear that walk away. You're not allowed to do it. If someone did do it, you're allowed to have it. It doesn't prohibit the soup because there's an opinion that says it's only a problem when you do it on the fire. Only in a kli rishon on the fire, otherwise it doesn't cook. So if you already someone by mistake put salt into the food on Shabbos, if he did it on the blech, on the fire, it's a problem. But if you did it off the fire, then there's no problem. There's no problem, meaning you're allowed, it is a problem, you're not allowed to do it, but you're allowed to have it, you're allowed to have the soup. Okay? Yeah, if there's any questions, please ask. כן.
פייר זה אומר פלטה?
מה?
מה זה פייר?
מה זה אש?
כן, כן, אני יודעת, אבל איזה אש?